And like I said, property 4, we mentioned this before, the empty set has 0 cardinality. All right, so let's take a look at an example now where we use these properties here. So in slide number 12, we have example 3, and it says the number of American households in 1997 in the Midwestern and Southwestern U.S. measured in millions whose household incomes were below or above $35,000 is shown in the table. And though notice here I've given names to these groups. So think of what we're saying here. Now remember the numbers are in millions. So if you look at the grand total down here in the lower right corner, we're talking about 84.9 million families. Among those families, 53.8 million of those had household incomes under $35,000. 31.1 million of those households had incomes of $35,000 and over. And let's keep on going here while we're talking about it. The Midwest, which we've denoted by set C, that constitutes 48.4 million households. The Southern U.S., written by set D, consists of 36.5 million households. Again, a total of 48.9 million households altogether. So here's what we want to do. In slide 13 here, we want to determine the following and interpret. So first we want to find the cardinality of the union of A and C. And in part B, we want to find the cardinality of the union of A and C complement. All right, well, let's go ahead and give that a go here. All right, so for part A, we're looking for the cardinality of A union C. So think of what that is. That's the cardinality of A plus the cardinality of C minus the cardinality of the intersection of A and C. All right, the cardinality of A, that's the number of households that had incomes below 35,000. Let's see, so if we look down the first column of data, we get 53.8. And then C, that's the number of households in the Midwest. So that's going to be, that number was 48.4 minus the number of households under 35,000 and also were from the Midwest. So let's look back at our table here real quick to see that. And notice here, that number is 35.3 million. So we want to subtract that number off. So if we take 53.8 plus 48.4 minus 35.3, we end up getting 66.9. So let's interpret the solution here. So this means that 66.9 million households in the U.S. had incomes less than $35,000 per year and were from the Midwest. right. Okay, so that takes care of part A. Now, for part B, first note that the cardinality of C complement is the size of the universal set, that's 84.9, minus, here, let me write down here so I can write it a little bit better, 84.9 minus 48.4, that's the number of these people in the Midwest. So that ends up being 36.5. So if we look down the column of data associated with set A, we see that the cardinality of A intersect C complement is 18.5. All right, so let's look at that again. And that's what? They're in D because they're not in C, and they're in column A, so that number ends up being 18.5. All right, so the cardinality then of A union C complement, that's going to be the cardinality of A plus the cardinality of C complement minus the cardinality of A intersect C complement. So think what that is now. That's 58.3 plus 36.5 minus 18.5. So we end up with 71.8. So let's go ahead and interpret that solution now. So this means that in the southern and midwestern U.S., there are 71.8 million households whose income is under $35,000 per year, or do not live in the Midwest. And that's where this idea of the complement comes into play. All right, so finally for homework, we want to read over section 6.2, and then on page 328, we want to do problems 1 through 23 every other odd,